This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, The War Room, bonus episode 2. Now, go ahead and grab a glass of wine and turn the lights down. Do whatever it is that you need to do to get ready for this episode. After Angela had explored her brand new study, her custom closet, and prayed over her husband in her war room, Q was ready to make that house a home. What Angela didn't tell Dr. Lopez in her last session, she called me and told me, girl. Baby, Q snatched Angela up out of her clothes and didn't give a good gosh darn that they were both sweaty as all get out from traveling all day. For the first time since they'd gotten married a little over 3 weeks before, Q didn't make love to his wife. He banged her back out all over the master suite. And Angela loved every minute of it. Q picked his naked wife up, carried her across the study, laid her on her back on top of her desk, held her by her thighs, and allowed his man to find his own way home. He gave her everything he had, stroke for stroke. And when she flooded, he wrapped her legs around his waist, picked her up, carried her across the room while continuing to stroke, and directly into her walk-in closet. He laid Angela on her brand new custom island, put her right calf on top of his shoulder, grabbed her left calf with his hand, and stretched her leg out to the side. Then he dug in and hit that thing from a whole new angle, making sure that his curve was perfectly aligned with her erogenous zone on the inside. He was stroking so thorough that her double D's were darn near smacking her in the face, and the drawers on the island were rattling, shaking, and opening. Q had the audacity to whisper, "I'ma have to tighten up these drawers so they don't make all this noise next time." Angela looked at him like he was out of his damn mind, talking about some darn drawers when he was banging her back out and she was letting it rain all over him again. Right when she started letting it go, he backed out, picked her up, and carried her into the bathroom. Q sat on the oversized plush Henry bench that he'd secretly chosen for this purpose, sat her on his lap, straddling him, and then he pulled out a move from the night of their engagement. He put his hands under her thighs, leaned back, and in one smooth motion, lifted her up and planted her on his face. And in Q true fashion, he used his very full lips and very long tongue to create a tsunami in her middle. And he didn't stop until he was almost drowning. When she collapsed against the wall over his head, he lifted her up, slid out from under her, stood up, and then stood her up on rubbery legs. He swung her around and then backed her into his closet. The ceilings in Q's closet were a little higher than the ceilings in all the other rooms. At 6'3", he needed a little more hanger space, so he had a custom designed step stool. He pushed the step stool up to his island, picked Angela up, stood her on top of it, and then laid her upper body face down, butt up, on top of the island. He wrapped one hand in her hair, used the other hand to insert just the tip, smacked her on the behind, and as she moaned, he dove in. Angela let out a scream, a cry, a moan, almost a cuss word, and shortly thereafter, her fourth release was running all down his legs. Q had to back out of that thing before he went over the edge with her. Angela was sprawled and laid out like an oxygen-deprived tuna, and Q didn't give no cares. He picked up his wife's almost limp body and started carrying her into the bathroom. As he slowly carried her in, He kissed her passionately. And when he lifted his head, Angela said, "Babe, I need a break." You said, "Don't tell me you tapping out, love." Angela said, "Yes, I'm tapping out." Q said, "So I can't get me?" Angela said, "Don't do that. You are intentionally not getting you. I know your game, sir. You've been playing it for 3 weeks." Q laughed and said, "Hold on now. When I told you I needed something, you told me to name it. I need you." Angela said, "So basically, you don't want me to even be able to walk tomorrow." Q said, "Where you need to go, I'll carry you there." Angela said, "Q." Q relented and wrapped his wife in a blanket and laid her down on the Henry bench. Then he said, "I'll make it feel better, baby." He started filling the tub up with water as hot as they both could stand and added the vibrantly bubble bath that she loved with the Epsom salt and eucalyptus. And then he heard Angela say, "Baby." When he turned around, Angela was sitting on the bench with the towel underneath her. She looked at her man and said, Q walked over to her and leaned down to give her a kiss, and she said, "That's not what I want to kiss." He stood back up and she said, "Come a little closer." When he was standing directly in front of her with his mans at eye level, he knew that Angela was ready to do what she hadn't done the entire honeymoon. She was ready to tame the beast. Angela wrapped both her hands around his member and still had plenty aimed directly at her face. She licked her lips again and sung into the mic. When her husband had all that he could stand, standing up, Angela stood up and sat him on the bench. She got a little rough with him, too. She pushed him against the wall and dropped down to her knees, and then she devoured her man until he tapped out, and their sunken jacuzzi tub was almost overflowing. Angela left Q spent on the bench, let some of the water out, and sat down in the tub. Then she looked at him and said, Q said, I'm good, love. I got what I needed." Angela burst out laughing, and then she said, "Get in the tub with me, babe." Q looked at Angela and said, "You want me to walk? You just gave me the best head I ever had in my life. We locked in, and ain't no switching up." Angela guffawed. Then she stepped back out of the tub and helped her men get in. Angela didn't need to have that conversation with Regina and Stephanie. After all, she had just tamed that beast and had her husband sprung. When they finished in the tub, Angela went and grabbed some waters out of the mini fridge in her study. And when she came back, Q was laid back in the middle of their four-poster California king-size bed with his hands behind his head and his man on swole. Angela sat the water bottles down and went in for a repeat performance. When she was done, it sounded like somebody had started a lawnmower in their bedroom. Q was knocked out, snoring, and he had a little bit of drool coming out the side of his mouth. Angela laid down next to her husband for the first time in their home, in their bed. Used the remote to turn the ceiling fan on and the light off. Pulled the blanket up over them and snuggled up in her husband's arms.